And let me just share my screen. So this is where we were, right? This is exactly where we were. So if we remember, guys, in this lesson, we had two objectives, right? Two goals. The first one had to do with writing a report based on a graph, which is exactly what you did for homework, right? But we have another goal, which has to do with using vague language for approximation. So that's all about grammar, and that's what we're gonna have a look at. So once again, we'll start looking at cities, talking about cities. That's what we're gonna do. So what I'd like you guys to do, basically, we're gonna do this exercise number 5. And we're gonna do it really quick. I'll open the breakout rooms of 4 people maximum, and you have to answer these questions really quick. And then when we come back, I will have another additional question, just to see, guys, if you can use. I mean, there is a tool that you can use for this as well, but that's a completely different question. So, guys, I'd like you to go to the breakout rooms and start the discussion talking about these 3 different questions. First of all, with those pictures, which cities do you think this is? I mean, which city, which is one city, by the way, it's the same picture. How many years do you think separated 2 photos? Which means that the difference in the quality of image, I mean, the reason for the difference in the quality of image is essentially, you know, um, time. And what are the most important differences? So that's what I'd like you guys to focus on. We're gonna take around 5 minutes maximum, and that's it, okay? So we're gonna go really quick and start doing this. So let me just pause the recording. Okay, guys. Okay, guys. So the challenge in this case was very, very clear, right? So what you guys had to do, I mean, the very first thing you gotta do was to try to guess which city this is, right? So I don't know how to ask this question, but okay. So first of all, which city is this? Which city do you think this is?
Beijing in China.
Beijing. Beijing in China. That sounds like a possibility, right? Any other guess, guys? Any other idea on which city this could be?
I think
Shanghai.
that, yeah, Shanghai.
Shanghai. Okay, Shanghai.
Yeah.
Okay, Shanghai. Shanghai, Beijing. Well, so you somehow agree on the fact that it must be China. Any other idea, guys, apart from Beijing and Shanghai? No. Okay, so that's one thing. On the other hand, guys, if we need I mean, for example, you're reading a text just like this, and you've got a picture like that, and you want to know what, for example, in this case, what city this is, or you want to know more about that picture, what can you do, guys? What would you do? If you get just the picture there with no info, what would you do to know more about that, or to try to look for information about that? For example, in this case, we believe that it might be Beijing or Shanghai, but how do we know which city it actually is? But not just for this case. As I said, if you have a picture and you want to know about that picture because you have no information, what can you do?
I mean, at least we're sure that it's China because of the letters in the buildings.
Okay. Yes, that makes
And
sense.
maybe we can search up for the building that has that, like the circle, something like that. I mean, it's very unique. So I think it's only there.
There you go. So for example, let's say you want, I don't know if you are thinking about using Google, for instance. So how would you look for that? Like, I don't know. Like, my question is, do you have a picture? And you need to know what that picture is, or what that is in general. So what would you do? What would you do?
I will search the description of the picture, like Valeria
Uh-huh.
said, about the building or some buildings right there in Google,
Mhm.
you know?
Like building with spheres, blah blah blah. Okay, that's something we could do.
Yeah, you want to
But
do it easier?
uh-huh.
There's like an option in Google, as Diana says. With
There you
Google
go.
Lens, you can search images.
There you go. There you go. Johanna, you wanted to say something, right?
Yeah, the same thing that Valeria said.
There you go. So if you have if you have your cell phone, you can do it with Google Lens super easily, right? So for those of you who want to look up for that, that's an application. I mean, that's actually like a plugin of Google for the application of photos. You can use it directly on your cell phones, and it will scan the pictures, right? And you can and it will actually tell you what that is. The other option we have, guys, is using Google. So just to show you really quick, how we can do that, because it's super easy. So for instance, you've got this picture over here, right? We want to know more about this picture. You can take a screenshot, right, of that picture. Once you have that screenshot, you could, and you have it on Paint, for instance, you can save that image. For instance, I just extracted that picture and save the image. And then you just go to Google, right? So if you are right here on Google, you can simply upload the picture. You click on this camera icon here, you upload the picture that I saved, which was that one. And that's it, right? That's it. So for instance, in this case, we know that this is exactly a district in Shanghai, which is called Pudong Skyline. That's how they call it, you see? So this is in Shanghai, for instance, and we get all this information there out of that picture, you see? So that's how you can do it if you want to be super sure about that. That's something I've done several times when I want to know something about a painting, for example. Sometimes it's just impossible. So you can do that. So that's another option you have. Okay, guys, nice. That was one thing. So the other question was, let me see. I'm sorry. So the other question was, how many years do you think separated two photos? So what would be the year for the first one and the year for the second? What would you guys say about that?
I will say that just 15 to 10 years, because
15 to
the
10 years.
Chinese people is like crazy about technology and building
Uh-huh,
things and all those things. And also they have this
Mm.
high, how do you say, rascacielos? Crabscraper?
Skyscrapers.
Skyscraper.
Skyscrapers.
So this skyscraper with the two spheres, it's
Uh-huh.
not like common in
Yep.
the last century. So yeah, I will say that 2005, 2006 for the first picture, and the second one like 2019. I don't know.
That's a possibility. Although we know that they are a whole different level when building. It could be like the difference is 2 months, you know, because they do so many things in just a couple of days. That's something that
Yeah,
happens.
and also
But
in the picture of the left, you could see like this publicity about Samsung, Siemens, and that it's
Mhm.
not too old. So
there you go. That is true. That is true. Okay, that's one possible guess. How we got any other guess, guys? Any other idea on the years of these pictures? Something you guys would like to perhaps, you know, share? I don't know. Somebody, guys. I'd like to listen to you. Yes, Magdalene, please.
I think that the quality of the photos, because
Uh-huh.
the first one it could be more, I don't know, old than
Older,
the
yes,
older than the second one. So I
that
think
is
that
true. That
that
is
could
true.
be a difference.
That is absolutely true. Just with the
Uh,
quality of the picture, right? Mhm.
yeah, and the number of the buildings that there are in two pictures.
There you go. Those are two very important points, Magdalene. Thank you very much. The quality of the picture itself, that makes a huge change. And of course, the number of buildings, right? You can actually see how time has passed. For instance, last night, guys, I was doing something very, I don't know, I got some free time last night. So I started to search on my YouTube account all the videos that I've liked. I just scrolled all the way down to find the very first video I liked on YouTube. And that was like in 2010, if I'm not wrong, if I don't, yes, it was like 2010. And when you watch those videos from those years, you know, you can also see what Magdalene says, and it's the quality. You see, and apart from, you know, the content of the videos or photos. It's also the quality, and that somehow tells you about the time. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna answer the question and I will actually put it over here. So the first one, guys, let me just double check. Yeah, the first one, guys, this picture is from 1987. Who could have thought that, right? That this picture is from 1987. Okay, so none of us was born in that moment. Not even my parents had plans in that moment, and yours even less. So 1987. And the second one, guys, is from 2013. So those are the years of this picture. So as we can say, there is some good time, you know, in between in this picture from Shanghai. So that's the answer. So the next question, I think Magdalene already helped us a little bit. So what are the most important differences? So quality of the images and also the number of buildings. Those are perhaps two of the most important differences. But is there anything else, guys, that would you might want to highlight perhaps?
Yeah, there is also a lot of greenery places in the second one than in the first one picture.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Like in the second one, there are less or there are more, you mean?
For me, it looks like a lot of trees in the second one.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's the quality of the photo, but the air, the atmosphere looks a little bit cleaner than in the
Uh-huh.
first one.
Hmm. Yeah, that's quite a good point. Although it's also kind of hard to determine what you say, because of course the second one looks way cleaner, that's for sure. But we don't know if it's because they made some tweaks using Photoshop or it's because it's actually cleaner. We don't
Yes,
know.
because we know that China is a lot of
Pollution, right?
yeah, pollution.
Yeah, those cities are quite polluted. So, oh, it's kind of hard to determine that. Any other idea, guys?
Well, I think that the topic that we are looking, that is the rate of growth. So
Uh-huh.
in that case, like in 2013, the population has grown in a huge way in China, of course. So that's the reason why the air pollution, like all those things.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So well, I think
Yeah, that's something that for sure we will listen to in a moment. So yeah, all those changes, guys, and you know what? This is more of a personal reflection. So if we think about that, for instance, if we think about the people who were uh, actively working back then in 1987, the people, the let's say the adults back then, let's say people in their 30s, in their 40s back then, also had very different you know, costumes and habits, and that's something that affects the pictures. Just to show an example, back then people would smoke in public spaces, and that also affects the way we interact with the cities themselves. And also, for instance, recycling, that was something also quite different back then. So you see, that's something also to keep in mind. But before I continue with my comments, Miguel, I think Miguel wanted to say something. So Miguel, please.
Yeah, I think that it's more attractive for tourists. I think that the cities around the world, not only that city, I think that think why the city or why the country can be more attractive for tourists or for different people around the world. I think.
I 100% agree on that. That's and you know what, that's part of these changes that we experiment. So I would just like you to think about that, like how the people were back then also, and how that is also a reflection on the cities themselves. Because you know, at the end of the day, cities are somehow a reproduction of the expectations and the needs of people. So cities are adjusted depending on what people actually want or need, right? So, so as you guys said, well, pollution is connected to that. And we could say that industries these days are more contaminating. But on the other hand, for instance, We know that recycling it's even though we still need to work more on that, at least people do that these days. Back then it was not necessary. So I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember when I was a little child that we didn't have to separate the wastes. You see, so it's like we would have one single bag for everything. So you would put both organic and non-organic waste in one single bag, and you would just throw it away, and that's it. But now we are more conscious about it. We are also more conscious, I believe, about water, for example. So, for instance, in my case, it hurts if I just waste water. I hate that. So we are a little bit more careful with that. And as Miguel said, which I also believe it's one huge change, tourism. And tourism not just as a leisure activity, but tourism also in terms of how people or how these new generations don't want to stay in one single place forever. So I believe that all of us love to travel to some degree, or all of us have expectations about going to a place in the world. I believe all of us dream of going to a specific place. So these newer generations are different in terms of that. We want to go to other places. We really dream of going to other places. And as Miguel said, somehow the cities and the people around the world understand that. So cities tend to be more attractive, and they worry about what to offer. So people want to go there. And that's something it's reflected on the pictures, I believe. And not just on the buildings and stuff, but also on the quality of pictures. If you see a picture like that on the internet, you might say like, wow, I want to go there, right? I want to visit that place. But the picture on the left, it's, you see, it doesn't look appealing. So I understand Miguel's point, and I believe that's something also to keep in mind. Okay, guys, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna listen to a student from this city talking about how it has changed. So we're gonna make notes of what she says about 4 things. And remember, guys, and this is of key importance for the exam, because that's something that's gonna happen when we present the exam. We said that, and by exam, I mean not just the exam of the term, but in general terms, international exams. When we listen to the audios of the exams, it is really, really, really important to take notes as you listen and try to capture all the information you can capture in terms of facts, in terms of figures, numbers. You know, it's really, really, really important to try to develop that skill, because normally you would have, you would listen to it, and then there's a number of questions. So if you have taken some notes, that's going to help you a lot answering the question. So we're going to make notes on what she says about essentially 4 things. First, of what changes have taken place, of course. Second, what's happening now. Third, the pros and cons of the changes. And 4, what may happen in the future. So those are the 4 things. So guys, I'd like to know if you got any question about that before we play the audio.
No, teacher.
No? Okay, so we're gonna play it once, and you guys simply have to take notes on those 4 aspects. Okay, that is it. So let's do this, guys.
Audio 1.6.
Can you hear the audio, guys?
Yep.
Yes,
Great.
teacher.
Shanghai has changed enormously in the last 30 years or so. I mean, it's really grown a lot. There are now just under 24 million people living here. That's double the population of the late 80s. So the past 30 years or so have seen some big changes. I think the area that's undergone the most dramatic change is probably Pudong. It used to be a rural area, but it's been completely transformed. They've built an incredible number of skyscrapers, and the skyline has changed beyond recognition. A lot of the big financial institutions which used to be in the Bund, that's another district, well, they've moved to Pudong. You got the Shanghai Tower, that's the tallest building in China, and Pudong is also where the airport is now. There are loads of shops, museums, and restaurants. It's a really lively part of the city. But it's not just the center of the city that's changed. The way Shanghai's growing means they're constantly putting up new tower blocks and residential areas all over town. I know some people aren't happy about being moved out of their old houses, but I think the quality of housing has improved a lot, and most people see it as something positive. I suppose in some ways I think it's becoming more westernized or maybe more globalized. You see all the same stores and chains you would in London or New York. I think it's also getting a lot more expensive because of this. There's also a much bigger middle class. I absolutely love what's happened in the waterfront area. That's all really changed. They always seem to be building a new expressway or widening an existing one. The metro's great. It's now got, something like 12 lines? And I think they're building or planning to build somewhere in the region of 7 more. That's a big improvement. One thing that hasn't changed too much, though, is the pollution. Shanghai's a lot better than Beijing, but the air quality's still not that great. But Shanghai is a much greener city than it used to be. They've established a green belt, and there are dozens of parks now, a lot more than there used to be, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of it stopping. More people are moving to Shanghai all the time.
Okay, guys, so let's see. So what changes have taken place, guys? What do you find there in terms of the changes that have taken place in this life period? What would you say there, guys?
Well, firstly, the population has grown in a huge way. Like they also say that it used to be a rural area,
There you go.
but now change, and especially the quality of houses. Nowadays, well, the houses are better.
That is true, and they say that basically the population has doubled. That's the expression they use. The population has doubled in those 30 years. That's something also we can say. And as you said, that was a rural area, and now, well, it's quite different, as we can say. The second question, thank you very much, Felipe. The second question, what's happening now? What do they say about what's happening now? They say something really important there. I believe that's one of the most important parts. What would you say, guys, regarding what's happening now? Didn't you catch it? So what they say here is that, well, they are constantly building. People are being moved out of old housing. So the people who were living in those rural areas back then, they are moving from there, and the place is getting more westernized. That's what they say. So it looks more Western and more, and it's getting more expensive because of the same reason, right? So that's what they say about what's happening now. The third question, guys, about the pros and the cons of those changes. What do they say about pros? Let's start talking about pros. What did they mention about the good aspects of that?
I think that one of the pros was that they now have a greener ring that is surrounded the important places of pollution.
That is absolutely true. So yes, your observation, Diego, at the beginning regarding the green areas was right, because they mentioned that it's somehow greener because it has more parks and what they call a green belt. So what they call a green belt, you know, like un cinturón verde, just to describe that, which is this all this green area which has been organized in that part. And also they mention the quality of housing. Of course, as it's getting modern, the quality of houses is of course better as well. So that's something also that's also something positive. They also mention improvements in terms of public transportation, right? So public transport has also improved, and even they've got access to the metro now. So those are the good aspects. What about the cons, guys, the negative aspects of these changes?
That is not related to the air pollution?
We know that. We knew that, right? So pollution is still a problem there. So that's something which is still worrying. And well, we said it already. People are being moved. So people has had to move to other places. So that's also something negative. And we also said it's getting more expensive as well, right? Those are the things. And the last one, guys, what may happen in the future? What did she say about what could happen in the future? You remember that, guys?
That they're planning to build 7 more like skyscraper.
Well, you're so close. But well, they are planning to build more, but no, what they are planning to build is 7 more metro lines. That's what they say. They plan to build more metro lines, and that means that people will continue moving from Pudong, which is the name of this district. Those are the two things. They were gonna build 7 more skyscraper metro lines, I'm sorry, and people will continue moving. There you go, guys. So what we're gonna do now here, it says the speaker is often vague about statistical information. So this time we are not going to focus only on these 4 different things she covered. But what we're gonna do now is to listen again and choose the correct options to complete sentences. So it's like we are going to focus on this language that she is using about the statistical information. So the point here is that we in the first part of a lesson, when we were working on writing and this report, we used lots of percentages and figures which were more accurate, right? So they were more precise, let's say. But in this case, we are talking about language which is more vague, which means that it's not very specific, it's not accurate, let's say. So we're gonna focus on that. Okay, guys, so we're gonna listen to the audio a second time, but this time we're gonna focus on this kind of language. So we need to listen to the sentences really carefully and try to find the expressions, okay? So we're gonna listen to it once again.
Audio 1.6.
Shanghai has changed enormously in the last 30 years or so. I mean, it's really grown a lot. There are now just under 24 million people living here. That's double the population of the late 80s. So the past 30 years or so have seen some big changes. I think the area that's undergone the most dramatic change is probably Pudong. It used to be a rural area, but it's been completely transformed. They've built an incredible number of skyscrapers, and the skyline has changed beyond recognition. A lot of the big financial institutions which used to be in the Bund, that's another district, well, they've moved to Pudong. You got the Shanghai Tower, that's the tallest building in China, and Pudong is also where the airport is now. There are loads of shops, museums, and restaurants. It's a really lively part of the city. But it's not just the center of the city that's changed. The way Shanghai's growing means they're constantly putting up new tower blocks and residential areas all over town. I know some people aren't happy about being moved out of their old houses, but I think the quality of housing has improved a lot, and most people see it as something positive. I suppose in some ways I think it's becoming more westernized or maybe more globalized. You see all the same stores and chains you would in London or New York. I think it's also getting a lot more expensive because of this. There's also a much bigger middle class. I absolutely love what's happened in the waterfront area. That's all really changed. They always seem to be building a new expressway or widening an existing one. The metro's great. It's now got, something like 12 lines? And I think they're building or planning to build somewhere in the region of 7 more. That's a big improvement. One thing that hasn't changed too much, though, is the pollution. Shanghai's a lot better than Beijing, but the air quality's still not that great. But Shanghai is a much greener city than it used to be. They've established a green belt, and there are dozens of parks now, a lot more than there used to be. And there doesn't seem to be any sign of it stopping. More people are moving to Shanghai all the time.
Okay, guys. So let's see. I think it was kind of easy to follow on the text using these expressions, but we're gonna try to have a look at each one of them and try to understand a little bit better those uses. Okay, guys. So if you help me, guys, with the first one, it's what would be the answer? Shanghai has changed enormously, and what was the expression she used?
Years or so.
I'm sorry. Once again.
Years or so.
In the last 30 years or so. In the last 30 years or so, right? Just like this. So let's have a look at this expression, guys. This is an expression that you can use, as you can see, to talk about time, but not being very accurate, right? So I don't know, like if you say, for example, this shop has been there for 30 years or so. You see this or so, it's something we add to expressions in order to specify that we are not very sure about it. We could have said as well, it's been there for more or less 30 years. It's pretty much the same thing. But this or so, it's also, well, easier. One thing we need to keep in mind, guys, as for example, in the case of writing, we say that we need to try to like write shorter sentences. When speaking, we also, it's better always to try to use less words, let's say. So that's more or less the tendency to sound a little bit more natural. So if you say simply or so, it's better because it's less words. So that's how you use it. So or so, in the last 30 years or so, I've been living here for 5 months or so. Although, of course, like it's like you should remember that. But anyways, the point is that every time you want to talk about time, but you're not 100% sure about it, you can say or so. That's it. Okay, so let's have a look at the second one. There are now, what would be the answer, guys?
Under.
Just under. What does it mean, guys, in this context? Just under. Because actually both expressions are possible, just under or just over. I mean, but in this case, why did she use just under to say what? Do you know that?
That are no 24 million people, actually. It's
Like,
just under, it's just less than that.
a little bit less, that's what she means by that. When she says just under, she wants to say that it might be a little bit less than 24 million. Can you imagine that, guys? 24 million people living in a city. That's almost like half the population of Colombia living in one single city. That's just nuts. That's just unbelievable. But there you go, guys. Just under to say that it's a little bit less than a certain number, or just over if you want to say that it's a little bit more than that. Number 3, guys, they've built, what would be the third one? They've built
An
An
incredible.
incredible number.
There we go. An incredible number of skyscrapers. So that's quite an easy way to express that there is a huge number of something. That's an incredible number of people waiting to enter this building. You see, so you use that expression, incredible number of, just to say that it's lots of something. Of course, we would use it only with countables, right? Nice. We've got something similar, an expression that would also work that way in the number 4. What was the number 4, guys? There are
Lots of.
loads of, right? Loads of. Same thing here, guys. It works pretty much like an incredible number of. It's almost like that. So there are loads of shops, museums, just a way to say there are many, right? Number 5, guys. I think they're building or planning to build.
Somewhere in the region.
Somewhere in the region.
Absolutely right, guys. Somewhere in the region. Somewhere in the region. 7 more. So in this case, remember that all of this is vague language. It's what they call vague language. So it's language to talk about things, but without being accurate, just to say, you know, more or less the things. So in this case, it's not about time or quantity. It is about location. Somewhere in the region. Somewhere in the region as a way to describe something. In terms of location, we are not quite sure. So for instance, that shop is somewhere in the city center, for instance. Like the building, I don't know exactly the address, I don't remember, but it's somewhere in the city center, or it's somewhere in Kennedy, it's somewhere in Puente Aranda, see, or somewhere in this region, somewhere in this city. Those are expressions to talk about location without being accurate. And number 6, they've established a green belt, and there are
Dozens of parks.
dozens of parks. As a way to say that there are many, but without being like exaggerated, because you know that I don't know if that happens to you, because I believe it does. But sometimes, and this is talking about the difference in terms of generations, also we should, you know, of course, talk about how generations express completely differently. So we know that, for example, some of us say like espere como 1000 horas, we say that, or we say like literal when something is not literal, for example, you see. So we like over exaggerate language, es que me muero esperando, literal. There are so many mistakes there. First of all, you don't use the adjective literal, but we should say literalmente all the time, never literal. So if you say that, or if you've heard someone who says literal in Spanish a lot, you should listen and try to analyze that, and you'll see that's a mistake. So every time we say literal, it's a mistake, because we shouldn't use an adjective, but an adverb. So we should say literalmente, right? And at the same time, in terms of semantics, that expression is used in a wrong way, because literalmente would means that something is exactly that way. So if we say like, ella se murió esperando literalmente, means that she actually died. You see that person actually died. And I say literal all the time. I know, Maria Alejandra, I know. And I say I say literal all the time, but I know that's a mistake, you see. But we also need to be careful. Why am I saying this? Because it's a term, it's thing of generations. For instance, in Spanish, I mean, Colombian Spanish young people say that a lot. Like for instance, if somebody asks you like, hay tiendas para comprar artesanías en el centro, tú sabes, hay como 1000. Someone who could say that, hay como 1000, but we know that there are not 1000. And the point is that if you say that in English, that might be very confusing. If you say like, there are like 1000 shops to buy handicrafts, don't say that. Be careful. We need to be careful. We need to be conscious of those things that we say in Spanish, and in the context in we say them. For instance, when we are talking with friends, that we exaggerate language so bad, right? Which is acceptable because we are among friends. But when we say something like that in English, that might be really confusing. Or even if we talk to an older person, we wouldn't use those expressions because that would be confusing. So same thing happens here. You can say thousands, you can say hundreds, thousands, you can say that. But in English, we tend to be very literal regarding that. So if we want to say that there are many, for example, in this case, many parks, but I mean, don't exaggerate that. Never say like there are like thousands of parks. No, because people would believe that it's actually thousands. So that's why we use dozens. As you can see in Spanish, we never say that. I mean, we never say that. If they ask you if there are shops to buy handicrafts in the city center, you would say like, yes, there are many. Or if you want to say there are many, you might exaggerate and say like, uy, sí, hay un montón, or hay como 100, hay 1000. People would say that like super rolos, right? But you would never say like, sí, hay decenas de tiendas. We don't say that, you see, even though it's better, but we don't say that because that doesn't sound very natural. But that's the point, guys. The point with this is that all this language is for talking in terms that's a vague language, but we need to be careful because even though it's vague, even though it's there to be precisely that way, not accurate, we need to be careful because in Spanish, especially young people, at least here in Colombia, we tend to exaggerate a lot, which is good, which is acceptable because that has a function when we are speaking, that has an emotional function. But we need to be careful because when we want to express that in English, we cannot do it exactly that way. Okay, there you go. So guys, now it's time for you to put everything together. So once again, I'd like you to please go to the breakout rooms. This time I will allow you to choose, and you basically have to classify these expressions from the exercise 7A in the exercise 7B right here in this box. Okay, that is what we gotta do. As you can see, we've got 5 different categories. So expressions to say less than, expressions to say approximately, expressions to say more than, vague quantifiers, and numerical groupings. So that's it. Okay, guys, so let's do this. We're gonna do this for during 5 minutes and then we're gonna come back here. Have you got any question or comment, guys, about what we've said so far? No? Questions, comments, guys? Come on.
No, teacher.
No? There you go.
Teacher.
Okay, guys, so let's go. This time you guys will be able to choose your groups. Let me just pause the recording. Here we go. So guys, let's see what you did. So that was the exercise 7B. Let me just check my info over here. Wait a minute. Here we go. Okay, guys, so let's see. So we said that let's start by reading the description because Johanna made a very important question. So I believe it's important to keep it in mind. So it says that we use approximation when we are not sure of the precise facts or wish to indicate numbers, times, ages, etc. In a general way, we do that. So vague language is generally informal. So she asked me about what vague language would actually mean. And that's the point. So vague language, as we have seen so far, it's that language that we use to talk about, as it says here, numbers, times, ages, locations, and stuff, but you don't want to be exactly, specific about that, perhaps because it's not relevant for the discussion, or perhaps because you don't have that information, okay? If we wanted to somehow translate that expression, vague language, we would actually say un lenguaje vago. It's just like that. We could also say that that's some sort of lenguaje casual in terms of the fact that it's not precise, it's not specific, okay? So that's essentially it. So it's expressions we use to talk about all of this kind of information, but when we don't have access or when we don't know the exact information or we believe it's not that relevant for the conversation, we use these sorts of expressions, okay? That's how it goes. So guys, the first category is less than, when we want to express that, less than. What is that expression we can use? But wait a minute, this time I like to ask people myself. That's how we gonna do that, because we have always had the same people like participating super actively, and I like to listen to other voices. And the first person to help us answering this exercise to put everything together is going to be Gerson. Gerson Abril, would you please help us with the number 1, if you will? Number 1, Gerson.
Just teacher. Could be just under.
Absolutely right. It would be in this case just under. That would be the expression. So we can say up to, nearly 50, just under. You see, we've got those three expressions we can use. Thank you very much, Jerson. We're gonna continue with the number 2. This time, I would like to listen to Ashley. Ashley, would you please help us with that one, with the number 2?
Okay, so in that we put lot of.
Loads of?
Yeah.
No, you know, we use that one to talk when we want to say that there are many, when we want to somehow say that the quantity of something is big. So no, in this case, we want to say that it's more or less. We want to be, you know, approximate. So I think that wouldn't be the actual expression in that case, you know. Have you got any other possibility, any other idea that perhaps you guys discussed for number 2?
Or so.
Also, or so,
Or so.
or so. Yeah, I believe we can use it. We could say or so. That's an option. We could say or so. Absolutely, yes. When we would say there's about 50 people, there are 50 people or so. Yeah, we can say that. So there would be 2 expressions actually. We've got or so. We've got a person who said, well, more or less, yes, we can say more or less as well. But apart from or so, there's another expression, which is the one that the book suggests to include. And I like to put it over here as well, just for our record. But let's keep in mind that or so is also an option. But the one that is suggested in the book for us to keep in mind is somewhere in the region of. Somewhere in the region of. That's the expression which is suggested here. But remember that or so is also an option. That would be an option as well. Okay, so we've got, let's say we can include any of these 2. Okay, there you go. Let's continue. Let's continue with the number, which would be the number. I'm a little bit of an idiot. So it should be somewhere in the region here. And this or so, we can leave it in the exercise number 3, you know, because it's the same category. So that's why I got it confused. So yeah, in that case, in the number 3, specifically it's or so. But if we go to the audio, where it looks, where it appears is in the last 30 years or so. So we're gonna put the example complete here. In the last 30 years or so, okay? It looks more organized this way. There you go. So we're gonna continue with the number 4. Well, then we have more than, in which we could use upwards of, over 50, 50 something, you say, so that means more than. Then we have vague quantifiers like not many, a few, quite a few, a large number of. So which one would you put in the number 4? And this time I will ask Dylan Paez. Would you please help us with the number 4, mister? Dylan, are you there? So I'm afraid Dylan is not here. That's a shame. So Clara, would you please help us with that one, number 4, please? Okay, that's a strike too. So let's see if we've got then Laura Bermudez. Oh my God, strike 3. Now what happens?
No, teacher.
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
Laura.
My micro. So, number 4.
Yes.
Well, we choose 3. Number 3.
What do you mean? No, in this case, number 4, what would be the expression?
Okay. So wait, my book. So the expression is wait. Of skyscrapers, they've boiled, yeah. this?
No.
Or no?
I think
don't
that,
know.
to be honest, I believe this is a strike 3, Laura, you know? That you were a little bit sort of lost there. So it should have been, yeah, it was number 3, let's say, the sentence number 3. It was an incredible
Yeah.
number.
Sorry. Yeah.
It was an incredible number. An incredible number of, that would be the expression. Okay, we should, I don't know, I will think of a rule, you know, like if I called you and I've got like 3 strikes, something should happen. I believe something should happen, but I don't know what. I don't know what I don't know what should happen, but I will think about it because that would be a very interesting dynamic, let's say. I mean, it would increase anxiety for some of you, I know, but that would be interesting. Then number 5, guys, another expression that we can use as a vague quantifier. I'd like to ask this time, let me say, Nicolas. Although Nicolas is quite active, actually. Nicolas Medina, mister.
Number 5 is loads of.
Loads of, that is absolutely right. Loads of, that is super true. And we get the last one, number 6, numerical grouping. So we use hundreds of, thousands of, millions of. We said that before. Let's see which one could be the one to use here. Let me see who I like to listen to this time. We're gonna listen to Camila Navarro. Please, number 6. Camila, are you there? I don't know, guys, little parenthesis. I don't know if there is a meme on that. They say that online classes these days feel like playing the Ouija, you know? Es como jugar la tabla Ouija. Es como, Camila, ¿estás ahí? Como que muéveme aquí la mano para sí o no, you know? So it feels like that a little bit sometimes. Oh my God, I will not miss this. So let's try with, so that's a strike 1. Let's start with let's try to Erika Corredor. Would you please help us with that one? Number 6. That is true, Danielle. That is true.
Teacher.
Okay.
Dozens of parks now.
Dozens of parks would be the exact example. Okay, guys, that's it. So we got the expressions right here. I really need you to super focus on this box because this box is all you need for tomorrow's homework. So homework you did for today, guys, and the homework you'll do for tomorrow, you're gonna upload all together tomorrow. Okay, so I know that you prepared the homework, you got it ready for here today, and that's something I absolutely want to thank you. But I would like you to please, if that's okay, I would like you to put everything together on one single, you know, piece of assignment, and I'd like you to upload that tomorrow. So my suggestion, guys, is you can do this exercise. I mean, I would like you to do this exercise with the same people you did the previous one, if that's okay with you. If you want to do it with somebody else, you can. It's okay. But my suggestion would be to do it with the same group. We said that you could have done it in pairs or in groups of 3 people. The homework that you prepared for today, which was this report. So this homework, I also would like you to do it with the same group. That would be the best thing to do. It would be super easy for me to organize all the information. But if you want to do it with somebody else, you can. It's not a big deal. So what do we gotta do, guys? We gotta go to page 127, and they say that you would like you would have to talk about changes in a town or city you know, or Austin, Texas. I wouldn't like you to talk about Austin, Texas, unless you have been there. And if you've lived there, that's okay, because it would be better if it's a place you know. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a town or city. It could be even a neighborhood, if you will. So I would like you to choose a place that you guys in the group know very well. So if you've lived, for instance, in the same zone in Bogota, that would be really interesting. Let's say the 3 of you live in Kennedy, so you know Kennedy very well. I mean, not super very well, but you know about Kennedy, you know that. So, and you can talk about it. It would be nice. So that would be the best thing to do. And if you don't want to choose a place that you know very well, it could be, well, a different place that you can look for information about. And look, if you go to that page 127, this is what you find. So basically, once you have chosen a place, let's say, well, we're going to talk about Chia, you see, or we're going to talk about Sogamoso, you know, any place you want. I'd like you to think about these 6 different aspects. Okay, so population and size of a town, transport infrastructure, housing, work, shopping, entertainment, and sporting facilities, green spaces, way of life. That's what I'd like you to do. And I would like you to, for that, guys, for that, this is going to be a speaking exercise. So you guys are going to do this as it says here, right? And you will put everything. It doesn't have to be bullet points. It could be just pictures, or I don't know, it could be also ideas, whatever. I would like you to make only one slide in which you will put pictures or keywords or key information for you to talk about that. So for example, me and the group, and my group, so we are 3 people, right? We are 3 people, and we're going to talk about Guatavita. We're going to talk about how this place has changed. So we put some key information in only one slide, and we prepare this information. So for instance, 2 of you can talk about 2 aspects, another person can talk about other 2, and not another person about other 2. So you prepare that presentation, and tomorrow we're going to mingle groups. So we're going to put groups together, and you guys are going to present to each other. The key here, guys, so it's a presentation about the changes in a place you want. That sounds very easy, but what I'd like you guys to do is to focus on this. So that means that you will not provide us with a specific information. So for instance, population has increased around 15%. No, we don't want that. We want you guys to use this expression. So don't focus that much about, you know, the actual information, but try to focus more on the language for speaking we have on this box. Okay, that is basically it. And you got to be ready for having tomorrow a short speaking presentation. And I think we're gonna choose some groups randomly to present in front of the others and see the use of these expressions. That's what we're gonna focus on. Okay, guys. Is there any question about this with this assignment? No?
No, teacher.
Okay, there we go. So remember, it's just this exercise number 8. And tomorrow we're gonna do number 9 here together. That's how we gonna do that. Okay, guys, so I swear on my life that I will be thinking about, I don't know, you just gave me such a good opportunity to innovate, let's say. I will think about something we could do, like whenever I ask you if there are 3 strikes, something should happen. I feel it, like something should happen. So let's see what happens. And apart from that, guys, once again, as I said, if you feel free to communicate your expectations, to talk a little bit more about how you feel. I mean, this is something I take very seriously. So that's something we can talk about. Apart from that, I see we've got only 29 people. So I'd like to know if there is anyone from, I think there is no one from the other group, guys. Is there anybody from the other group in this moment here? Because I cannot see you, and I don't know. There's no one, right? Okay, because I'm really confused, because you know that some of them told me that they were pushing the university so they could get a teacher assigned. And yesterday I talked to the coordinator and he said, I know nothing about it. So I was like, what? So I don't know what's going on with them because they haven't contacted me. So if you know about anything, guys, if you know something about that, I mean, the point is, if you can talk to anybody from the other group, just and they can tell you, that would be useful. Yes.
Yeah, I know something.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a friend for another group, and she told me that they don't wanna enter to this class because they want that the university give give them another
Uh-huh.
solution for their problem.
But,
I think
thank you
so.
for that, Miguel. But
Yeah.
do you know if they have sent any letter or something? Because my point is that yesterday when I told the coordinator that this was happening, he said, I mean, he didn't know. So that's a serious problem because
Yeah.
if they don't enter here, but the
Yeah, teacher.
coordinator doesn't know.
Is that right now the solution? The solution is that they enter to this class, but they don't want to enter to this class. So the group say that they need another solution to.
I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
Miguel, thank you. So guys, I would really, the thing is that I don't have any of their contacts, so I would deeply appreciate if you tell them that if they need my help for anything, just to tell me. You say if they need my help, please let me know. You guys have my email. I think you can share my email with them and tell them that if they need my help with anything, just to tell me because I want to help. But if I know nothing, it's going to be a little bit harder. So that would be it. Okay, guys, we're gonna call the attendance, but before that, remember that we're gonna upload the homework tomorrow. So we're gonna upload today and tomorrow's homework tomorrow. So you don't have to upload anything today. And when we do it, that's going to be week number 4, but that's something we're gonna do tomorrow. I'll tell you exactly tomorrow where and how to do it. So let me just stop the recording in this moment so we call the attendance, if that's okay.